Our next project is to make a pitcher. This is going to be a 2-pound pitcher. So I have prepared a 2-pound ball of clay. It's all wedged up and ready to go. Now my wheel head has some slop on it. It's not too bad, but I mean, because there's no big chunks, but I'm going to just wipe it off a little bit, get it ready to go. I like to keep my tools a little better organized than what you see at the moment. So get a wet sponge, just clean this off. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get most of the big globs off. So that's fine. All right, so with every project, the first thing is to attach the clay to the wheel head. So there we go. It's a little bit off center, so I'm just gonna nudge it just a little bit. And that's good. Now if we spin the wheel, you can see where it stands. So the first thing is to center it. This is just the same as every other project, so I won't go through all of the gory details. Now this is double the amount of clay from the earlier lessons, so it's not all that big. You know, you can make things out of 5 or 10 pounds or even more. So this is not a big pot, but it's a lot bigger than your 1-pound pot. But it's exactly the same movements. You want to do wedging on the wheel. You know, bring that clay up and down at least 3 times. So there's one time. You can see a lot of those striations on the side. Eventually all that is going to go away. So this part down here where it sometimes flares out, you just have to take your pinky fingers and really grab that tightly. Make sure you've got a nice tight demarcation of where the edge of that clay is. Don't let it spread out on you. Okay, so we'll go a second time up. I can feel some chunky things in there, so we might even do a 4th time this time. So, second time down. Now again, 2 pounds, more like a softball than a baseball, but other than that, really no different. So we'll go up a 3rd time. And back down. Now I still see quite a bit of kind of irregularities in there, kind of striations that go around. So I'm going to go ahead and do this a 4th time. As I said earlier on, you know, you do this at least 3 times, typically, and really you do it for as long as you need to in order to get things properly centered. It's got to feel right. And I think we're going to call that good. So always kind of keep your wheel head neat and clean. You feel better about it. Okay, opening exactly the same as every other pot. So we're just making a cylinder today. So get a little bit of water in there, a couple drops, and plunge. Now, as always, it's important to know where the bottom of your pot is, where the inside bottom is. If you need to or you want to, use your needle tool as a caliper. There's no shame in that. I typically don't do that, so I'm not going to bother this time. But it looks like the bottom of this it's a little more than a 1/4 inch. But not a lot. It's not 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out. And this time I'm just kind of sliding both of my hands to the right gently. I want to make the inside bottom of my pot. And this is pretty close to 3 inches for the inside of a pitcher. I actually have a ruler here. I can measure it. Yeah, that's right at 3 inches, which is fine. So this is a vertical shape. So I am going to do the next move is I'm going to just pull this back and make it a kind of an inwardly oriented, let's call it a pyramid. Let's call it a volcano. whatever it is. Okay, so we've got that prepared. Now we're going to do a pull. The first pull, always a little bit subtle, so I established that pinch at the base. I've got my hands locked together as one unit, and it's one slow, gentle spiral around the pot. So I'm raising my hands both together in unison and squeezing a little bit of the clay in and up. And like I always say, the first pull is kind of a suggestion. You're just trying to get things oriented the right way. Always come back and work on that lip. Keep it nice and smooth. So many pots get little cracks or elephant ears, and that's because people fail to go back every time and work on that lip. A couple drops of water, we're going to go in for a second pull. So I establish my pinch, nice and low, outside and inside, and now we're just going to raise that up. This should be a little bit more dramatic than the first one. Alright, now we stop a little bit short of the very top because we want to leave that very top lip a little bit fat. It's got a little bit of extra strength that way. But always come back and compress it, smooth it out. Keep it nice looking. Okay, we'll go in for a third pull. Now, just as a reference, my ruler is getting a little gunky here, but I've got just shy of 4 inches right now. We want to probably take this up to about 6. So this is like the 6-inch cylinder project in many ways. 2 pounds of clay, make a 6-inch cylinder, but then we're going to make something out of it. So I've got a little bit of water on there. Go in for my pinch and pull. And I'll stop just short of the very top. Now I think you can see a little bit of a wobble on the top there. This is why we work on the lip. So if we catch it right away, we can kind of smooth that in and incorporate it and make it kind of normal again. All right, it's not perfect. If that wobble gets too out of hand, we can actually trim that off, and that's probably a good thing to show. But this is fine for now. So that's, I think that's 2 pulls. I don't know, 2 or 3. But we'll go ahead and do another pull because I think this is, well, I can't read the ruler. So let's do that. And that is 5 1/4 inches. We want to get it about 6. So we'll do one more pull. A couple drops of water inside. Establish that pinch. And now we pull. And it's pretty important to go as straight up as you can. If it starts to splay out on you, reposition your hands or do whatever you need to do to get it to go as much straight up as you can. We'll do the shaping later, but it's always best to do that shaping from having a well-formed cylinder first. So I'm just going to sop up the water that's in the bottom, and we'll see what we got that time. That's about 6 1/4 inches. So that's terrific. We've got our 6-inch cylinder project completed. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the pre-trim at this stage. That looks good. Come in with the needle tool, cut under that. All right, and then like I always say, if you do this right, it should come off in one piece, and there we go. Okay, now we have a cylinder. You can see that it bows out a little bit here, kind of comes in. You've got a defined lip. All that's great. Now, the question that I want to ask myself right at this point is, how big do I want the opening at the top of my pitcher to be? This is a little bit larger than what I want. This is about almost 4.5 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to collar this in a little bit. And we've discussed collaring. It's always kind of the same, but depending on the size and shape of the piece, maybe executed a little differently. But I'm just trying to narrow down the opening just a little bit. Not a lot, just kind of making that diameter a little bit smaller. And I think that's fine. Now, I want to make this a pitcher shape. Well, what is a pitcher shape? The answer to that is it's whatever you want. Typically, they're a little bit bulbous so that they hold a lot of liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and use my wonderful multi-purpose rib here, my bottle tool, and I'm going to belly this out a little bit. So I'm using this part of the tool, and let's see, we're gonna start at about the 2/3 up point, and I'm pushing this rib outward toward me, and as it makes its rotations, I'm pushing it down, kind of in the same way that you would do when you're doing a pull up. It's a slow, gentle spiral, moving the clay out from the inside this time instead of up from the bottom. Now, so I have completed one pass with the stretching, and you can see that it's a fuller shape. So one thing to note is when you're ribbing with a tool like this, if you push out and down, the piece is not going to lose much height. And when you are at the bottom and you pull out and up, you actually push the bottom support out of the way and allow the clay to shrink a little bit. So it's not forbidden to do this to stretch from the bottom to the top, but just know that if you do that, the pot is going to get a little bit shorter. So I'm going to start from the top again and rib this out just a little bit more. You can see we're getting a nice belly shape now. When you get close to the bottom, you've got to be careful that you don't just poke a hole in your nice flat prepared bottom that is down there. So now I am ribbing back up a little bit. And we're just trying to establish a nice curved shape. Sometimes you have to get down low and look at it. But from what I can see, this looks like a pretty nice shape. So I'm just going to make the shoulder a little bit more prominent. And then we can finish up. I want to finish the top, and it's very close to done, but I want to pull that in just a little bit. And in doing this, I'm going to make sure that everything is nice and square, not square, but round and even. So I'm even going to work on my lip, make that nice and smooth. Just using a damp sponge for that. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. Now the inside is dry, the shape is completed. Before you take it off the wheel, you want to make the spout. And the way I make a spout, I suppose there are a number of different ways to do this, but I take my thumb and forefinger and just gently set those on the outside of the lip. And then I take the index finger on my right hand and I start to pull this edge down. And it's important that this edge be a horizontal structure. So it's a little bit hard to do sometimes, but you really want to push down, and you can even like thin this out, kind of feather it out a little bit if you need to. But it's important to have that be a little bit sharp and laying horizontally or flat. And that looks pretty good. I am going to just touch it up with my sponge a little bit, make it look finished, and that's fine. So now I'm going to cut it off. So wiring this off, you could easily, with a 2-pound pitcher, you could easily wire it off wet and move it onto another bat. But just because I've got a lot of bats, I'm going to wire this one off dry and just set it over in the work in process area. So that is the body of the pitcher. I did a handle demonstration earlier, and I'm going to show how to attach the handle to this. I probably will do that, both the handle for this pitcher and the handle for my mug demonstration. I'll probably do those all at once. So that'll be a handle attachment video. So that's it, and thank you for watching.